Okay, so our first type of polynomial we're going to talk about is a monomial. If you think about mono, not the sickness mono, but a monomial is when you have one of something. So a monomial can be okay guys, let's stop with the chatter. I won't be talking very long. Monomial is a numeral, or it can be a variable, or it could be a product of the two to make it into a monomial. So some examples of a monomial would be what? No equal signs.
X squared.
X. I was thinking 8. X squared would be a monomial. There's just one term there. 8 would be a monomial. There's just one thing there. I could take the product of the two, and that still is going to be a monomial. Would the sum of the two be a monomial? No. Because that makes you have two separate terms. It's not linking them together. What if I had x squared y to the third z to the fourth?
Trinomial.
It's still a monomial. It's still a product of one or more variables, right? So that could still be a monomial.
As long as there's no multiplication signs, division signs, addition signs, or a
Well, that is multiplication. So as long as there's no addition or subtraction signs breaking them up. Right. Okay. You also can't have, a monomial can't have something in the denominator. Like 1 over x, that's not
So it can only have multiplication.
a monomial. Right.
I didn't know you could zoom in on that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you write so perfect?
That's the only way I can write well enough when I make it giant. Okay? What do you think's next after a monomial? Binomial. We gotta get to 2. Oops, hold on, go back. Go back. Where's my binomial?
No, it's not there.
Oh my gosh. All right. I guess we'll go in order of this. My brain wasn't working. Okay, so, my bad. We'll get back to that binomial. Hold it for later. Coefficient, we all know what a coefficient is, right? Huh? I don't know. Write it if you want. They're your notes. That's right. So your coefficient is the numerical factor that's in a monomial. So when we had that 8x squared, what was the coefficient? 8, right? If I had 4x squared y, the coefficient would be 4. If I had 3 a, b, c, d,
This doesn't really
3.
It's not like an x squared.
Well, what would be the coefficient in front of an x squared? 1, right? Because it's 1x squared. Okay? All right. So, I guess we're going to talk about what happens when we add a bunch of monomials together. So, when we look at what's called the degree of a monomial. Your degree is going to be the sum of the exponents
I remember doing this.
of its variables. So this is where it can get a little tricky. If I give you the monomial 4x squared, well, let's just stick with 4x squared for now. That's easy. So that's a monomial, yeah? Okay. What's the coefficient? 4. Now the degree, bless you, is the sum of the exponents of the variables. Keep in mind it's of the variables. So even though right now my 4 does have an exponent of 1, Josh, let's put the phone away, please. I'm not going to use that 1 when I'm talking about the degree. So since I only have a variable of x, right now my degree would be 2. Okay. If I had 4x squared y, then what would the degree be? It would be 3, the sum of the exponents of its variables. So the degree would be 3, because it would be 2 plus 1.
Would the coefficient still be 4?
Yeah, coefficient is still 4. If I made that y have an exponent of 5, then what would the degree turn into? 7.
If the y had a number in front of it, would there be 2 coefficients?
Well, so good question. If I put like a 2 here,
Yeah.
then I would multiply the 4 and the 2 together, get 8, and then the coefficient would turn into 8.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. What if I added a z? Now what did the degree turn into? 4, because 2 plus 1 plus 1. Okay? All right. So, like we were talking about, we have a binomial. What comes after binomial? Trinomial. Well, those occur when you add together a sum of monomials to create a polynomial.
And this is after like 3, so if there's 4, we would call it a polynomial.
Right, so you would say a polynomial of 4 terms or whatever. So when you see the word polynomial, it should be talking about either just a monomial, because a monomial is a polynomial. Polynomial is like the general family of them.
What? I thought poly meant more than one.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. Because a polynomial is a monomial, and then a binomial, and then a trinomial, and anything beyond that with more
Oh,
than...
it's all put together.
It's like the last name of the family. Okay? So, a polynomial can be a monomial or a sum of monomials. So, let's go through this. Let's say if I had the sum of 2 monomials, that would be a binomial.
Which is a poly.
Right, which is a polynomial. What if I had the sum of 3 monomials? Then it would be a trinomial. Anything beyond 3, so if we had 3x to the third plus 2x squared plus 5x minus 6, how many monomials do we have? 4. So anything beyond trinomial, we'll just say that it is a polynomial with, 4 terms. Or a polynomial with 5 terms. Or a polynomial with 6 terms. Okay? So if it goes beyond trinomial, just state it's a polynomial with this many terms. Let's quickly make sure we've got all of this. What would be the coefficient of this binomial, do you think? 1. Very good. What would be the coefficient here?
1.
2.
Ooh.
3.
Well, the coefficient of this guy is a 1.
1 times 2.
The coefficient here is 2. The coefficient here is 1. If you're talking about the coefficient of the whole entire polynomial, then we're talking about the leading coefficient, which we would think would be what? 1. The one that's in front.
That's what I said.
Okay?
What
So
did
what
you
would
say
be...
about multiplying them?
That's just to define the degrees, not the coefficient. Degrees come. Oh, for multiplying them?
Yeah.
That's if they were products.
Oh,
So we were multiplying those.
This is Eric. Okay.
Right. Here my leading coefficient would be 3. What would be the degree of this monomial? 1. What would be the degree of this monomial?
1.
Remember, the degree comes from the exponent on the variable. So if there is no variable, then we assume that the exponent is 0, because anything to the 0 power is 1, right?
Could you say the same if it was 2?
What is the degree of this one? 2, degree, 1, degree, 0. Degree here would be 3, 2, 1, 0. Good. Okay? All right, so we'll probably skip some of these slides. So when you're asked to put something into standard form, when you have to write a polynomial in standard form, then what we're looking for is rewriting the terms or your monomials in decreasing order.
And that's what you did on the previous one.
Right. So this is an example of a polynomial. How many terms?
4.
4. In standard form. So let's quickly note in our notes all the important parts of this. So we know that we have 4 terms, so it's a polynomial of 4 terms. What number would be the leading coefficient? 2. So this would be your leading coefficient. It's paused. Brain freeze on the iPad. Okay.
Alright,
So your leading coefficient is that number 2.
I do kind of
Remember this?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got 4 terms. Now let's think ahead. If this degree is what?
3.
3. What do we use? What word for degrees of 3? So this would technically be considered a cubic
Polynomial.
term. Yeah, eventually we'll get there. This monomial has a degree of what? 2. So that would be what type of term? Quadratic. This would be a quadratic term. This 2 has a 1 for the degree, so that would be a linear term. The 5 has a degree of 0.
So it would be none.
Linear.
Now think about that. If I had to graph the line y equals 5, what does that look like?
Oh, just a line.
It's just the line crossing at 5, right?
Undefined.
That's not undefined.
0.
The slope is 0. The slope is 0.
That is
It's a horizontal line.
horizontal.
We're going to call it constant. It's a constant term. The reason why we call it constant, Avery,
Yeah.
is no matter what value x is, will this 5 get affected? No, because 5 will always be 5. It stays constant. There's no x attached to it to make it change.
That should have been in your is constant.
All right, so now let's make a list of ways to classify. Here we go. So classifying polynomials. So if you are asked to classify a polynomial, you are going to be asked to state what type of degree it has and what type of term it has. Did you give it back to me after the name part? Okay. Yep. All right. So let's go over our degrees first. If your degree is 0, we are going to call it a constant polynomial. If your degree is 1, we would call it what? Linear. It's a linear polynomial. If your degree is 2, it would be quadratic. 3 would be cubic. We can do 4 and up to 5. Quintic, you guys came up with that. 4 would be quartic.
I said quartic.
You said quartic, it's quartic.
It's the same thing.
There was a W in there. And then 5, we're going to go with quintic.
Oh, I can do 6.
I don't even know if that's right, to be honest. Anything beyond 5, we're just going to say degree of 6, degree of 7, degree of 8, degree of 9, degree of 10, degree of 11. We'll be lazy about it that way. Okay? But you will be responsible for making sure you remember 0 through 5. So when you go to classify a polynomial, you have to pick one of these options and link it with the number of terms. Can you have 0 terms and have a polynomial? No, it wouldn't be anything, right? So if you have 1 term, then it is a monomial. 2 terms is a binomial. 3 is a trinomial. And anything beyond, we would say a polynomial of n terms. Okay? So anything past trinomial, just say that it's, so we could have a constant, well, we really wouldn't have a constant trinomial. Really, we could only have a constant monomial for your degree. We could have a quadratic trinomial. We could have a quartic polynomial of 5 terms. So you're going to be blending those together. Okay? Questions with that?
On like a quiz or a test or something, would we have to like do it oppositely, and you would give us the words and we would have to write it out? It would like say.
It'll most likely give you, it'll be like this. So for this example. So let's do an example here, guys. So I want you to write this polynomial in standard form. And then I want you to classify. All right, so let's say we have negative 3x plus 5x squared minus 1 plus 4x cubed. So rearrange it so that it's in standard form. And then classify it.
So for the degree, do we only do it for the...
You do your highest one, yes.
Oh, so you just do the highest one?
Right. Yeah, I missed that part. Sorry, guys. What should come first? 4x cubed, followed by 5x squared, followed by minus 3x minus 1. Your degree is going to come from your highest degree of a monomial, which should be, nope, don't add them. So your degree in this monomial is 3, your degree here is 2, your degree here is 1, your degree here is 0. So your highest degree is 3, so it's cubic polynomial of 4 terms. Okay? So, for your homework, we got one more thing we have to do yet. For your homework, you're going to have to be able to write something in standard form. You're going to have to be able to classify. Simple, simple. You'll be able to name it and say, this is blah, 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 this is blah, blah, blah. Make sure you can identify leading coefficients. And the last thing we're going to have to do for homework is adding and subtracting. So zoom through all this stuff. Did all that, did all that. Did all that. We're good. It is adding and subtracting. So let's finish with some adding and subtracting. It is simple.
Puritans to do this.
What if I take offense to that statement?
Yeah.
Are you a Puritan?
I could be.
Well, then you can do it.
I live in Pennsylvania. All right, so we've got 2 polynomials. Is the first one written in standard form? No. Is the second one written in standard form? Yes. Doesn't really matter if this is in standard form or not. If it helps you to organize yourself, you can rewrite it in standard form. How would you classify this polynomial? Cubic trinomial. What would this one be? Of 4 terms. Good. So the simplicity of adding and subtracting polynomials is just as easy as combining your like terms. So if you have a cubic over here, look to see if you have a cubic over here, and then combine them with a plus.
Negative 5x cubed.
So let's start with the highest degree. So x cubed. I made that 2. X cubed. So a negative 3x to the third plus a negative 2x to the third gets us to negative 5x to the third. Now let's focus on the squareds, the quadratic terms. So there's a squared. Do I have a squared on the other side? Nope, so that just comes down because it's kind of like adding 0 to it. Now let's focus on the linears. Thank you. So focusing on the linear ones, what would you get when you added the linear ones? 5x and 7x, 12x, and then your constants? Negative 2. Good. Would you be able to do the same thing but subtracting?
Yes.
And then you would have to find like a degree and stuff of it.
Maybe. Yeah, so this would be what, a cubic polynomial of 4 terms?
So would you only have to do that if it says classified?
Yeah. Let's do the same. Last thing, guys. This is all I'm doing. Stop talking. Let's do the same one, but subtracting. Negative 2x to the third plus 7x minus 6. I'm running out of space. So now you have to wrap your brain around subtracting.
So you're really adding.
So what I personally like to do is sometimes it's hard for my brain to handle all that mental capacity of subtracting negatives, is I'll turn this into a plus sign. But if I turn this into a plus sign, Avery, what am I going to have to do to everything in this?
You have to
Change it. But do not make the mistake and change both of the signs of the polynomials.
Okay.
So remember, if you subtract, if you do a 1 minus a 2, that's the same as 1 plus a negative 2. It's not the same as negative 1 plus negative 2, right? So if we flip it, so negative 2x squared minus 3x third plus 5x plus 4 plus, then it becomes a positive 2x to the third minus 7x plus 6. Now I can add them.